Well, thank you for joining us today. My name is Katie Clark. I am an assistant professor of nursing at Augsburg University. Could you please introduce yourself for the recording?
Good morning. I'm Martha Gisselquist.
How many years have you been here at the Health Commons?
I started volunteering on a regular basis in the summer of 2000, so it's been a little over 17 years of being involved with this fantastic program.
Thank you for joining us. Before we begin, I just want to make sure that you confirm that you consent to be interviewed and have the interview recording stored at Augsburg University, which will be made available to the public.
Yes.
Great. Okay, can you just start off by telling me a little bit about where you grew up and who you called family?
I grew up in Sioux City, Iowa, born in Minnesota. Father's family mostly from the Twin Cities, and my mother's family from northern Minnesota and North Dakota. Both my grandfathers and father were Lutheran pastors, so a lot of involvement in the church growing up.
So how did you end up in the Twin Cities?
I came up here for school.
Okay, so I know that you're a nurse, so what led you to want to be a nurse and come here for school?
I don't remember wanting to do anything else. 3 of my aunts were nurses. Of course, options seemed rather limited for women when I was growing up. You know, you could be a teacher or a nurse or a secretary or a stay-at-home mom, but I always wanted to be a nurse. Some people accuse me of being a little too much of a caregiver, but always wanted to be a nurse.
Great. Now, what about your educational background? What path did you take to become a nurse?
I came directly to Minneapolis from high school to attend Lutheran Deaconess Hospital School of Nursing, which was a 3-year diploma program. And that was also the alma mater of my aunts. I really didn't look at any place else. Of course I would go to Lutheran Deaconess. And then I worked for a number of years and attended the University of Minnesota in the early 80s to receive an aging studies certificate. In the mid-80s, I enrolled in the first weekend nursing program at Augsburg to get my BSN.
And what year was that?
83 to 86.
And was that the first group that graduated?
That was the first weekend college group, not the first RNs to complete the BSN programs.
And what made you choose Augsburg?
My family has a long history with Augsburg. My grandfather, uncle, father, 5 of my siblings are all graduates of Augsburg. My uncle taught history at Augsburg for many years. I was not going to be the only one of the 6 kids not to say that I graduated from Augsburg. And the program fit my timing and my interests.
Now, as far as the Augsburg Central Health Commons, which used to be called the Augsburg Nursing Center, what do you remember about the beginning of it all?
I recall during my student days doing a variety of public health practicums throughout the Twin Cities. I think the professors, and especially the Dean, Bev Nilsson, were looking for a community experience that would be more unique for the Augsburg's nursing programs.
So you first learned about it through your schooling then?
Correct.
And do you remember any ideas or foundational theories of Bev Nielsen beginning it all? Do you remember any of her? Did she say much?
Oh, yes. During my student days, I was there during what perhaps would be considered the discussion phases. I recall Bev Nielsen having many meetings with administration, both at Augsburg and at Central Lutheran, where she was a member. There were just many logistics to figure out: the responsibilities of each entity, where the funding was going to come from, the space, the timing, the incorporation of how the students would be involved and the professors. So I was there during its development phase.
Would you say her ideas back then are what it represents now, or does it look a lot different than what she thought it would look like?
I think it is pretty much what she envisioned, perhaps more refined at this point. It seemed like a nursing center where nurses did hands-on, and I think it's broadened extensively from that. And I recall when it was started, I think some of her ideas were that Bev felt very strongly that the two organizations, Central Lutheran and Augsburg, could work very well together to offer needed health care services to the inner city homeless population. The partnership would also provide an excellent experience for the nursing students. It's not easy, I don't think, to find the practicums around the Twin Cities, and for the profs to follow them, and etc.
So do you think it being more open, not just for nurses, makes it stronger, or something that we could improve on? You don't have to.
Does it make it stronger?
Or it makes it different, right?
It definitely makes it different. When in the early phases you were able to give over-the-counter meds and spend a lot more time on what were health issues, it did not give a whole lot of time to just sit down and build relationships, which I think is one of our big strengths now. Getting to know the folks, getting to understand a bit what the issues are. I think that's some of the improvement that I see now.
So as far as you, what keeps you coming back?
I really enjoy the guests who come here, as well as I enjoy the volunteers, the Augsburg staff and students that come, and the Central Lutheran community. It's a great group of folks. And I am learning a lot about the issues that face those who are more marginalized in our society. I love having the time to visit and get to know the guests. I feel it's a really wonderful gift to be able to use my nursing skills that I've gained over the past almost 50 years in this way. It's a fun nursing.
And you're a natural here. Do you feel that overall the Health Commons is a very welcoming space? And how do you kind of create that sense of hospitality when you're caring for people?
Yes, I think for the most part it is a welcoming place, but currently our space doesn't help too much.
Yeah, we're in a trailer currently for this year during the remodel.
Yeah. I want to welcome guests as if they were coming to my home. I want to be able to greet them when they come by. I want to be able to sit and talk to them, maybe offer coffee, and just let them know that they matter.
So how would you say that when somebody comes in, you're able to acknowledge their need?
I think by listening and observing. What are they looking for? What are they saying, but also what aren't they saying? It really helps to have those hygiene products and socks available to give freely. It allows our guests to come in, kind of check us out in a very non-threatening way. And then conversations and relationships often begin just with that benign entrance into, need some supplies.
Right. What is something that we can improve at the Health Commons?
I think space makes a huge difference. Do guests feel safe to check us out? Is there a comfortable place to visit? Is there some place for privacy when it's needed? Is there something that tells the first-time visitor who we are and what we do? Are all of the nurses and volunteers attentive to all of the guests? I think those are things we need to always be aware of and watching and improving on.
So, can you tell us more about what your favorite part of being part of the community at the Health Commons is? For example, could you share a story with us?
Well, I know the needs of the homeless in our community are huge. However, I feel I'm doing just a small part to help. I think I've been able to share some of the concerns and needs that I've seen with others in my network, which occasionally has led to others volunteering, making donations, minimally just becoming aware of some of the issues and what you as an individual can do. You ask about a story. Let me use the name Karen to describe a young woman who was in and out of addiction, sometimes abused, with numerous health issues that she coped with but really didn't have the strength to fix. I really appreciated the Health Commons being there for her. She would come in when she was really down in just difficult situations and know she could come to us for support, for supplies, for direction. But she would also come to us when she was feeling good and when she had some successes and when she started to do some art projects. And we were there for her in the low times and in the high times. And I think the Health Commons staff and volunteers were there for her at her death. The whole church conducted a wonderful funeral and even identified and gave her a burial spot in the columbarium in the church. And that all started because of the Health Commons and that relationship that we were able to develop with this one young woman.
It's a beautiful story. What are some of the typical health concerns that you see with participants who come in?
Mental health issues are huge. Addictions. And just some with basic blood pressure issues that they monitor here. Skin problems. A lot of aches and pains. Fungal infections, mostly of the feet. Poor foot care, nail care. Those are some of the typical ones you see.
So you mentioned Karen having strengths, but what are some kind of overall strengths you see in the people who come into the Health Commons?
Toughness to make it on their own outside. Creativity in finding supplies, finding resources that they need to live just day to day and in a tough environment.
What are some of the challenges that you've heard people discuss in their ability to access healthcare?
Finances is huge, especially for medication copays. Transportation. Also knowing where to go and when to get the health care. That's huge.
Very much. So what should nurses know when they're taking care of people who may be experiencing homelessness or who are marginally housed?
I think they need to orient themselves to what resources are out there. I really appreciated when Augsburg provided a walking tour of a number of the services in the area, so you could see that firsthand. I think familiarizing oneself with the information in the booklet Handbook of the Street is helpful in identifying resources and showing folks what's available. That's just some of the how-tos. What else should nurses know? Boy, you've got to be willing to be around folks who have who don't smell so good, maybe, or have some other diseases that you think, do I really want to give this guy a hug? But of course you do. How do you look at that person, no matter what situation they're in, and just say, this is a guest in my home, and I am going to welcome them the best I can?
Well, that sounds like you're almost answering the next question, but I'd like to ask it again anyhow. How do you accompany people on their journey of health?
I think just being present, remembering who they are and what they've been going through, and connecting them with those appropriate resources.
And you talked a lot about relationships. So how do you really begin to develop relationships with people who come into this space?
Well, it happens only over time. Welcoming them, introducing yourself to them, trying to find out something unique about each person that you can hopefully remember and be a part of that discussion each time they come in, and definitely not being judgmental, trying to keep an open mind of why they've come in the first place and what can we offer each other.
So if there was one thing that you could change about healthcare, what would it be?
I think training and retraining all healthcare workers to look at the whole person, and providing easier access to healthcare for everyone without the financial burdens.
So what do you think the Health Commons should be like 20 years from now?
I can see it being replicated in other churches that are located near populations that are marginalized. I see Augsburg partnering with other nursing programs in the Twin Cities to meet the staffing and financial needs to provide these types of centers, for one thing.
Well, that's all I have for questions for you. Is there anything you'd like to add or want to share regarding either the history or your experiences?
I'm very appreciative of Augsburg's commitment to sticking with this program since the mid-'80s, really. I know it didn't start functioning until 92, and there were other organizations involved to help it financially. But that's a real commitment for Augsburg to continue this, and I hope that they will see that this type of outreach to the community for their nursing program is really fits the mission that Augsburg has.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome. Thank you, Katie, for your leadership and for your energy and for putting this history together.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.